Good morning. Today, the Nobel Peace Prize sold at auction for charity, leaving all previous sales records far behind. Proceeds are going to Ukrainian children displaced by war.
China taking advantage of cheaper Russian oil due to Western sanctions. Russia is passing Saudi Arabia as the lead supplier of crude oil for Chinese imports.
One of Hong Kong's iconic floating restaurants capsizing in the South China Sea on Sunday. The popular tourist attraction has served Cantonese cuisine to over 3 million guests.
4 Republican primary runoff elections in Georgia today could potentially contribute to shifting the majority of power in the House. We take a look at the candidates, 2 of whom are Trump-endorsed.
From living in a homeless shelter to graduating valedictorian, a young man used a mindset of kindness and perseverance to change his life.
Good morning. Welcome to NTD Daybreak. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Good morning, and I'm Evelyn Lee. It's Tuesday, June 21st, and it's also the start of summer. Happy summer. Time to hit the beach if you haven't already, I'd say.
I have.
We kick off today's show with the story of a Russian journalist who auctioned off his Nobel Peace Prize for over $100 million. He's doing that to help Ukrainian children during the war. Dmitry Muratov, he is the co-winner of the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize, and he pledged to donate $500,000 of his prize money to charities. In the end, the auction was a record-shattering $103.5 million. Up until now, the record for a Nobel Prize was just under $5 million. So with this 20-fold increase, it not only sets a massive record for heritage auctions and the Nobel Prize, it's also among the largest donations to UNICEF. The auction for the Nobel Prize coincidentally landed on World Refugee Day. Muratov dedicated his Nobel to 6 Russian journalists that have been murdered since the year 2000.
I can't believe it. I'm awestruck personally. I'm flabbergasted. I'm stunned. I don't really know what happened in there. We knew that there were a lot of interested parties. We knew that there was a tremendous groundswell of interest in the last couple days, who were people who were moved by Dmitry's story, by Dmitry's act of generosity. So it's 100 million Swiss francs that has been contributed to UNICEF of Switzerland and Liechtenstein, to that organization, and will flow through to the international UNICEF organization and be distributed to aid in the refugee crisis in Ukraine and neighboring countries, and at that amount likely around the world, right? That is a tremendous sum of money.
Muratov won the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize with Maria Ressa of the Philippines for their efforts in safeguarding freedom of expression, which they say is a precondition for democracy and lasting peace.
Muratov co-founded Novaya Gazeta, the last major independent Russian media outlet, which was firmly critical of Russian President Vladimir Putin during its operation. Now the outlet has shut down because of threats from the state for its coverage of the war in Ukraine.
And that demonstrates how the war in Ukraine has increased pressure on an already tense situation for independent journalists in Russia.
Hollywood actor Ben Stiller visited Ukraine and met with President Zelenskiy on Monday. Stiller said the Ukrainian president is his hero. Stiller expressed his admiration for Zelenskiy and his success in rallying the country and the world. They went on to discuss the importance of continuing to speak about the war to help push back against Russian influence. Stiller also mentioned the difference between experiencing the war on social media and seeing the impact of the conflict firsthand in Irpin, a site of the war's devastation.
The West has implemented strict sanctions on Russian oil, but China is taking advantage of the cheaper prices caused by the situation. Russia has now overtaken Saudi Arabia as the lead supplier of crude oil for Chinese imports. China's crude oil imports from Russia increased 55% from a year earlier to a record level in May. The data from Chinese customs shows that Russia is exporting almost 2 million barrels a day to China. That's despite Western sanctions. China also imported over almost 300,000 tons of Iranian oil last month, despite U.S. sanctions also on Iran. Reports showed that no oil came directly from Venezuela into China, another country that's been grappling with U.S. sanctions. However, imports from Malaysia, which is often a transfer point for Iranian and Venezuelan oil, more than doubled from a year earlier.
Gas prices have dropped a few cents in the U.S., but still linger at record highs. President Biden says he's weighing a few options to help Americans pay for gas. This, as the White House is smoothing out a mixed message over whether Biden will meet with the Saudi Crown Prince to talk about oil production. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more.
The national average price for gas trickled down a few cents over the weekend, but it's unclear if this trend will continue as the oil market jumps around. President Biden today continuing to point fingers at oil refinery companies.
They're going to move to alternative energy, renewable energy, and they don't want to get stuck. Well, guess what? There's a logical transition to be made here. And I want an explanation from them as to why they aren't refining more oil.
His comments come after strong pushback from the oil industry last week that says it's the White House's policies that are holding up production. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm is meeting with big oil executives this week to try and work through these issues. In addition, Granholm says that Biden continues to ask for increased production at home and overseas, which she says is on the docket for discussion when Biden goes to the Middle East next month.
I think he will meet with the Saudi Crown Prince. He has asked for all suppliers around the globe to increase production.
This message appears to be at odds with what President Biden told reporters just 3 days ago.
I'm not going to meet with MBS. I'm going to an international meeting.
Now the White House is working to smooth out the mixed messaging. A national security spokesperson clarified to CNN, quote, "As we've said, there will be a bilateral meeting with King Solomon and his team. That meeting will include the Crown Prince and other Saudi officials." As for more immediate solutions, President Biden says the White House is looking at a gas rebate card to help Americans pay for gas.
That's part of what we consider. That's part of the whole operation.
Alongside a rebate card, Biden says they're also looking to freeze a tax on gas, called a gas tax holiday. The president hopes to have a final decision on this by the end of the week. A federal gas tax holiday was proposed in Congress, and that idea was floating around, but congressional leadership tossed it out just 2 months ago. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, alongside Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, said that this solution was not sustainable since it has to draw funding from other infrastructure projects. But with this latest statement from the president indicating that this is a solution that the White House is looking at and they hope to make a decision on by the end of this week, it may revive discussions in Congress around this federal gas tax holiday. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Israel's 8-party coalition government announced Monday it will dissolve parliament, resulting in yet another election. The decision is opening talks of re-electing former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The dissolution will mean the 5th election in 3 years for Israel. The party leader, Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, couldn't keep the diverse coalition together. He transferred leadership to Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid for the interim. Right-wing parties in the coalition thought Bennett was becoming too moderate and felt he was making compromises to keep the party alive.
Britain woke up to its biggest rail strike in decades. That's because last-minute talks between a union and train companies failed to reach a settlement over job security and pay. In central London on Tuesday, morning rows of trains could be seen stopped at stations, and the city streets were vastly emptier than usual. Up to 40,000 cleaners, signalers, maintenance workers, and station staff will walk out for 3 days this week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. The strike is expected to shut down most of the rail network across the country, with London Underground subway services also hit by a walkout. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says the strike will cause mass disruption, with only about 20% of services able to operate. Unions are warning of a summer of strikes as soaring inflation hits the income of workers across the economy.
And over in Hong Kong, the iconic jumbo floating restaurant capsized in the South China Sea last Sunday. The accident occurred just 5 days after being moved from its original location.
The parent company said in a statement that the restaurant encountered adverse conditions on Saturday as it was passing the Xisha Island in the South China Sea. Water entered the vessel, causing it to tip. The efforts to save the vessel failed, and it capsized on Sunday. No one was injured. The 260-foot restaurant had been a landmark in Hong Kong for over 4 decades. It's also been a popular tourist attraction and served Cantonese cuisine to over 3 million guests. It welcomed celebrities and politicians, including Queen Elizabeth II and Tom Cruise. The pandemic forced the restaurant to close in 2020 due to financial difficulties. The restaurant was towed away last Tuesday to move to a lower cost site. Prior to its departure, the vessel had been thoroughly inspected by marine engineers, and all relevant approvals were obtained. The company is now getting further details of the accident from the towing company.
Coming up, the outcome of Georgia's 4 Republican congressional runoff elections today could contribute to shifting the majority in the House. We take a look at the candidates, 2 of whom are Trump-endorsed. And Florida Governor Ron Desantis doubled down on the state's recommendation against mRNA COVID-19 vaccines for babies. We'll have all that and more for you right here on NTD Daybreak.
Georgia is holding 4 Republican congressional runoff elections today. The outcome could play a part in shifting the balance of the House this November. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more about the candidates.
In Georgia, if no candidate surpasses 50% of the votes in the primary election, the top 2 vote-getters advance to a runoff. In today's runoff elections, 2 of the congressional candidates have former President Donald Trump's endorsement: 6th District's Jake Evans and 10th District's Vernon Jones. Jones, who has called himself the Black Donald Trump, is running against Mike Collins. Both candidates are outspoken Trump supporters. In Georgia's 6th Congressional District, Trump-endorsed Jake Evans is facing Rich McCormick. Evans received 23% of the vote in May's primary compared to McCormick's 43%. McCormick has accused Evans of changing his stance on multiple issues, and Evans says McCormick is a moderate who will compromise with Democrats if elected. The victor will face the Democratic primary winner, former U.S. Army soldier Bob Christian, in November. The 6th District is favored Republican after recent redistricting. In Georgia's newly drawn 7th Congressional District, Michael Corbin will face Mark Gonsalves to secure the Republican Party nomination. The winner will face Democrat Lucy McBath in the general election. The 7th District is seen as a battleground race, with the general election being hard to predict. Republicans have controlled the district since 1994. Georgia's 2nd Congressional District GOP runoff has West Point graduate and former U.S. Army Captain Jeremy Hunt facing attorney and Georgia Air National Guard officer Chris West. Hunt has outspent West 6-1 campaigning. The 2nd District leans Democrat, but Republicans believe the seat can be flipped because of President Joe Biden's low approval rating, high gas prices, and a poor economy. The district's map was redrawn and now includes around 45% of Republican-leaning voters. The winner will face Democrat Representative Sanford Bishop, who was named one of the most vulnerable incumbents by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
The CDC recommends COVID-19 vaccines for babies as young as 6 months old, whereas the state of Florida does not. But Governor Ron Desantis said parents will still be able to get their vaccine for their children if they so choose. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
Florida is the only state that hasn't ordered COVID-19 vaccines for babies over 6 months old. Governor Ron DeSantis commented on the mainstream media coverage of the Sunshine State's decision.
They came out with an article saying the state of Florida has not ordered, its Department of Health has not ordered mRNA jabs for the babies. Yes, we didn't. We recommend against it. We are not going to have any programs where we're trying to jab 6-month-old babies with mRNA. That's just the reality.
Although the Florida Department of Health does not recommend the vaccines for babies, DeSantis says that parents are free to do what they think is best for their children.
Quite frankly, if someone wants to make a different decision, I would just caution people, look at the actual data in the clinical trial. It is the weakest possible data that you could possibly see. Very small number of people. What the recommendation is from them doesn't even track the outcomes.
On June 17th, the Food and Drug Administration authorized emergency use of the Moderna and Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines for children as young as 6 months. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Up next, from living in a homeless shelter to graduating valedictorian, a young man used a mindset of kindness and perseverance to change his life. And what is centuries old and needs thousands of flowers? Find out after the break. While census data shows people are leaving California, it still attracts people for numerous reasons. That includes beautiful beaches, redwoods, and of course, Hollywood. And that beauty can actually be measured. California has a good number of the most photographed locations in the United States. And today's Jason Blair brings us more.
According to data published by Yelp, California lays claim to hosting about 1/3 of the most photographed landmarks in the U.S. and Canada. On a list of the top 50, 17 are in California, with 6 of those being in the top 10. Now, there are definitely some places you probably already know about that are on the list. For example, the Golden Gate Bridge over behind me. However, the number 1 spot might actually surprise you. And actually, I do have to admit myself, there are a couple on the list that I'm just learning about for the first time. Coming in at number 44 is Mission Santa Barbara in Southern California. It's an active Franciscan mission that was established in 1786 and features colorful gardens and twin bell towers. Number 39 is the Oakland Bay Bridge, a 2-story bridge that connects Oakland and San Francisco. And number 36 is Old Town San Diego Historic Park in San Diego. And not surprisingly, the Hollywood Walk of Fame makes the list at number 20. Hearst Castle in San Simeon is number 4 on the list, and coming in at number 3 is Alcatraz Island in San Francisco, which is no stranger to making it on people's list of places to visit in California. And the number 1 most photographed spot on Yelp in the US and Canada is Balboa Park in San Diego. This picturesque park has about 10,000 user-submitted photos and counting. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
A little town just outside of Rome, Italy, has a tradition. Every year, the locals of Genzano cover the streets with flowers for the Infiorata festival.
350,000. That's how many flowers it takes to make this street in Genzano come alive for the Infiorata festival. A flower carpet that stretches over almost 2,500 square yards, with 14 pictures depicting well-known art pieces, religious and civil themes, and geometric motifs.
This year, for the 244th edition of the Infiorata, the theme is Our Mother Earth. The painting I designed is entitled The Joy That a Flower Gives Has No End, and is inspired by Titian's famous painting Flora from 1550.
Dating back to 1778, this tradition covers the street leading to the church of Santa Maria in Simo with all natural elements, petals, seeds, and spices.
The Infiorata was born during the Corpus Christi procession. Because this is a religious festival, some of the inhabitants of the street threw petals as the procession passed by. Then some people started to create pictures from the petals, to put together some small patterns, and from there the Infiorata was born. Then an event was created with detailed sketches and it became what it is.
The artworks are prepared the night before to ensure the petals provide the best atmosphere for the festival.
It is wonderful because these traditional events are among the things that make us recognizable in Europe and the world. And when these popular local traditions are missing, a piece of our conscience, our culture, our image is missing, and you feel reborn when you can witness them again.
A 244-year-old tradition bringing the beauty of nature and art to the streets of Italy.
After losing his mother to leukemia, a 6-year-old boy and his family also lost their home. But after 2 years being in a homeless shelter, he managed to beat the odds and turn the situation around. Let's find out how. Griffin Furlong's childhood was far from ordinary. His mom was diagnosed with cancer when she was 5 months pregnant with him. He was only 6 when he found out at school that she passed away. Broken-hearted, Griffin, his older brother Sean, and their father went through a lot of hardship over the next few years.
We were defeated, and it didn't help that our car broke down weeks later, And, you know, all of these events started just unraveling. We couldn't afford rent anymore, and we ended up living in a homeless shelter for 2 years.
The family was even on the verge of losing their place in the shelter and being left on the streets as the father was battling depression and could not get a job.
I just remember just not having a place to go, and you know, some volunteers at I forget what organization were going to set us up with a tent.
But this all changed when their grandmother from Florida decided to take them in. For 12 hours, she drove from Jacksonville to Kentucky to pick them up with only the clothes on their backs.
So that was like a big turning point for us to finally have a place to stay. She helped us rent just a small house down here in Jacksonville.
And she gave them a new life.
She's our angel.
This newfound stability encouraged the boys to get back on their feet.
I was like, well, I'm not in the shelter anymore. I have my family with me. You know, this is a complete change of scenery. So let me see what I can do.
Griffin and Sean made a pact to change their lives through education, and that mindset is still guiding their actions.
I would wake up super early for school. I'd ride my bike to school, and I would just think about, you know, how much work can I get done today? Like, what can I learn today? And
I don't think we ever missed a day of school.
Soon, the enthusiasm for learning led to Griffin making straight A's. His dad and brother noticed that he was gifted and were encouraging him to aim for college.
In the classroom, Griffin was very dedicated. He was always interested in what he could do better, even if he received an A on an assignment.
Ironically, a few months before high school graduation, life decided to test Griffin again. His father lost his job and they found themselves homeless a second time.
My heart dropped because it was months before graduation, and, you know, I had another big challenge in front of me, and I had to finish school strong. And 2 weeks after I went homeless, I was announced valedictorian.
He did not tell a soul at school, and everyone was shocked to find out when he gave his valedictorian speech.
You know, a lot of people in general think that homelessness looks a specific way, and to look at Griffin and the way he conducted himself, no one would have thought him to fit into their stereotype.
His situation sparked the interest of the media, and this helped him to get a scholarship, go to college, and help his father. Driven by his passion to solve problems, he chose to study engineering at university. But of course, not without challenges. One of the lessons learned is about failure and how to deal with it.
I have failed throughout my entire school career. I've gotten F's before. I have failed miserably. And I failed a lot even during my time at the homeless shelter. I failed my multiplication test 5 times in a row.
But that doesn't change his mindset. For Griffin, failure became like a stepping stone.
That's kind of my message for anyone out there with failure or questioning themselves. I would always just say, be true to yourself. You're gonna have obstacles, but it's all about how you overcome that obstacle.
And that's why he's putting together his own book.
I started outlining basically, you know, principles that transcend beyond the classroom, like lessons learned, you know, from going through school, seeing what I've seen in the homeless shelters, everything that I've gathered and observed of the world. I put that on paper, and it's aimed with the student in mind.
Because he believes that a mindset of kindness and perseverance can change lives.
But he wants to use kind of his story and our story to make a difference, because there's a lot of people that go through kind of what we went, single parent, you know, depression, not really having a whole lot of control over your situation, but there is a way out.
Now he's filled with appreciation and gratitude.
What I went through in my past really helps me ground myself. I always go back to the shelter and just always say, hey, things could be worse. Things could be so much worse. I'm so blessed to have the food in my fridge. I'm so blessed to just even be here.
That's some amazing dedication and accomplishment, and really ambition. Going for an engineering degree, that's some tough stuff. You know, I studied engineering in college.
Oh, so you're a problem solver.
Well, you could say so, but engineering statistics like the hyperbolic probability distribution and all that, it's not easy. I got to hand it to Griffin for making that comeback after failing multiplication.
Well, yeah, the comeback indeed. And I think when life hits you like this, you really have two choices, right? So instead of letting all of this swallow him, he really just took it as a lesson and he came out on top. So I really admire that. And he's now holding seminars for students as well and hopes to inspire others with his story. And we can even stay tuned for his book this year.
That's fantastic. Good for him. And leave it to Grandma to save the day.
Oh, always can count on Grandma. That's all for today's program. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.